First of all, hello and thank you to everybody that's still here. I know it's been a very long day and a half, maybe 2 days for some of you. And welcome to the Esports panel, or as it's otherwise known, football's role in the emerging esports market. My name is Paul Raymond. I'm PR Marketing Manager for Goal, which is also involved managing and formulating our own esports strategy as a sports publisher. For us, we recognise that for many young fans, and those maybe like myself, not quite so young anymore, gaming plays an integral role in how they engage with football. For that means that we're making sure that Goal is integrated more with gaming. That can involve, for instance, fans being interviewed by Goal journalists and Football Manager, or as we were fortunate enough earlier on this year to have a Goal team within FIFA 19 Ultimate Team that fans could play against. This was also involved, and probably more challenging for us, actually entering the FIFA 18 and 17 Global Series, which we did, and was probably more challenging than probably we first thought. And that's pretty much why I'm here, and hopefully why you guys are here, to find out a little bit more about how football can be involved with esports, and how you can kind of get involved in an industry which, much like football, is worth a lot of money and is packing out stadiums. We're joined here by representatives from EA Sports, Levante, and the Portuguese Football Federation. And I think it's probably more suitable that, if I don't mind handing over, if you guys kind of introduce yourself and let us know kind of why you're here and why you're involved with esports.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Raul Faria. I'm 29 years old, and I'm the head of esports of the Portuguese Football Federation. My journey in esports started from my passion for football. I had the dream to become a professional football player, but the quality was not there. So I saw on esports an opportunity to connect these two passions, football and esports. So I believe, and our goal at the Football Federation is to show a positive side of esports, and to show that eFootball can be an example, a good example for the future of football.
Luca?
Hi everyone, I'm Luca Donati. I am International Business Manager at Levante Union Deportiva. I am the head of esports department at Levante. We start 3 years ago with our esport project because as commercial way, we wanted to involve brands, sponsor, partner with Levante Union Deportiva, not only in the normal way with sponsorship with a football team, and we thought that was very interesting for us to have a section of esports where we can offer a different package of sponsors for our partners. And here we are.
Yes. Ben?
Hi everyone, thank you for coming. My name is Ben Wyer-Roberts. I work for EA. Specifically, my job is 100% on competitive FIFA or football esports. Specifically, I run the program management group, which is essentially the team that's set up within EA to help third parties come into the ecosystem. So any entity that wants to get involved running a tournament or having players or clubs participate, my team is the one that does that, and it could include, so FIFA itself, obviously the organisation, UEFA, our key league partners like La Liga and Bundesliga, Premier League, etc., but also working with professional tournament operators, which essentially are these third parties set up just specifically to run professional level tournaments.
Thank you. I'm going to start playing devil's advocate, really. Why does football need to get involved in esports, or more precisely, why does the Portuguese FA and Levante, why did you need to be involved in this scene?
So for the Portuguese Football Federation is organic connection between football and eFootball. For example, we had a show match between our two national eFootball players, Ras Arthur and Tuga, against the true stars of Wolverhampton, Ruben Neves and Diogo Jota. and Diogo Jota and Ruben Neves beat the two professional e-football players because they play e-football every day at the training sessions when they are away from home with the colleagues, and this connection, it's natural. Or with the FIFA game, with the EA's game, we see a connection between the football and e-football from many years, where we have clubs and we have players involved. And for example, for me, I started to play FIFA because I was a football fan. And we believe at the Football Federation that in the future, maybe people will gonna see football because they have played FIFA, and we want to be prepared for this moment.
And as a club's point of view, where was Levante's motivation, and what's kind of your goal?
When we started three years ago, we had clear that we had to enter in eSport world. But when we start to think how to enter, the connection and the easy way was through FIFA. Because La Liga is pushing hard with this game, and because for us was the easy connection between the fans, not only our fans, but the worldwide fans and Levante. We wanted to put a flag in the esports world, and so we thought that FIFA was the easy way to connect with the fans. We want that player from Costa Rica or from Malaysia recognize Levante shorts because he likes how our professional players compete during the international competition. So for us, engage the fans through esports is a way to connect with fans all over the world. So for that reason, we joined esports. We thought maybe to have teams in other esports games, but we prefer to focus on FIFA, even because, I repeat, La Liga is making a fantastic job, so help us to push hard in this way.
Was that a consideration for you then? Because there are other football clubs who enter into different games, such as League of Legends or Counter-Strike, non-obvious, non-football-based games. Did you consider that as an option before opting to FIFA?
Yeah, we consider it, of course. Even, I want to be honest, the economical effort to start with FIFA is not as much as other esports games, because of course we can have only 1 or 2 players. In other games you need at least 10, 11, 6. And so for us to convince the club to invest in esports was easy, starting with FIFA. And yes, we are still considering, because our goal is to create an esport department where we can have maybe League of Legends or other games. But we need to go step by step, and first doing a good job with FIFA, and after that, of course, that we will go in with other games.
So Ben, from your experience of working with clubs and organizations, where do you even start? If you're a team out there and you've seen what other guys are doing, you've seen what Levante have done and other large clubs, how do you find somebody who's good? How do you work out contracts, payments? You're probably very much used to working in a football ecosystem. And esports is quite different. What's the start?
It's a really fair question. I think it's really great to see the room pretty much full. So I think this is probably one of the hot topics. The first thing I'd suggest is that if you're coming from the world of traditional football and you pick up any tablet or whatever, any news story on the internet, esports is booming, it's worth $1 million, $1 billion, $1 trillion, whatever the hell it is, I wouldn't necessarily believe everything you read in every article, but for sure the growth is absolutely on that trajectory. So how do I get involved is obviously an obvious question. What I would say is that do your homework. if you have an existing digital strategy, an existing strategy to target the 12 to 25-year-old gamers already, then think, well, there's a logical place for esports to play in that. And I'm just trying to be super neutral here. Obviously, I'm really biased and say everyone should go out and sign up a player and set up teams right now, but it's not really the right thing to do for everybody. I think in the future, we're trying to, EA is trying to build a program with FIFA and UEFA and all our league partners where there is something for everybody. Now, I think I've got the best job in the world. I love what I do. There are millions of people out there who love playing FIFA every day, and it's part of their football experience. So as much as kicking a ball out in the park with your schoolmates, or you've made some college, or on a Sunday league team, playing FIFA is part of your football world. So it's great for us to be in that situation. And these two wonderful gentlemen have talked about that as to why it's a relevant next step for them. Getting involved. There are lots of different ways that you can engage with the competitive space. And I'm being very careful here. I don't like just to throw out the term esports, because in my world of competitive FIFA, we look at it like a pyramid. So everyone who plays our game, FIFA, you've got the vast majority of people at the bottom of the pyramid and through the middle. They just want to play. Every time that you pick up a controller, you want to play against your friend, you want to win. That's competition. You may decide that you're the best in your school just by playing on the couch. You then decide, well, I'm going to go online, and you're the best in your town. You then have the opportunity to say, right, well, I'm the best in my region, now I'm the best in my country, now I'm the best in my continent. And there are levels of competition within our game that allow you to do that. Now, at no point are we having guns to people's heads saying, you've got to get right to the top, because for a lot of people, they don't want to do that. But we have a structure that allows you to get in at the bottom, just as a player, as a competitor, and find your level. Now, I think the beauty of having this structure is that there is a clear path to success. So for the last 10 years, there's been, with the exception of the last two, the FIFA Interactive World Cup, which for many years was very much a kind of amateur tournament. There was one or two really, really good players who rose to the top, and they kind of smashed it. And that was fine, because the world wasn't, at the time, ready for that. Now, we have a very, I'd say, complex system. There's a lot going on, is what I'd say. But if you decide that you want to embrace esports, look at the competitions that are out there. So in any given country, so let's take, Portugal. There is a really rich grassroots scene. We know that Portuguese competitors are amongst some of the finest in the world. Not just sucking up there, because it's true, it's a fact. Yeah. But these guys can play in-game as much as they wish. But then there will be kind of amateur, grassroots-level tournaments which run, maybe a couple of hundred people involved, maybe small amounts of prize money, and that's fine. They can get involved there. When you then start looking at the next steps up, you've got official national tournaments. Am I going to be the person that represents my country playing FIFA? Am I going to go into the Liga NOS and play in the Portuguese official league? Both of these two things are options. Equally, within the ecosystem, we have other events. So EA run a series of high-profile professional tournaments which are open to pretty much anyone in the world. I've kind of gone around the house a bit. But
is it kind of easier now? Because if you're for instance, when Goal was looking to recruit players, we had to see how well they perform in a weekend league, which is, as the name suggests, a weekly competition which attributes points based on their performance. But with the Global Series last year, when you introduced the ongoing rankings and the Global Series points, it's now much easier to log in, look at a table, and see who's available, who's a free agent, and who's been performing the best.
Absolutely. I think, again, you asked the original question, how do I get involved in esports? It really depends what you want to do. If you are, let's say, from traditional football, a second or third division club, in the official leagues, you're not necessarily going to win your country's national championship, but you have passionate players, passionate fans. You can absolutely set up a tournament tomorrow to decide who is going to represent my club. There are lots of organizations out there that will help you set up online tournaments that will allow you to do that. If your objective is, I want to reach out to my fans and give them a fun, engaging thing to do, and at the end of it, you get to wear the shirt of the club that you love, fantastic, you can do that tomorrow. If you've decided that you want to get into to professional FIFA or the esports side of things, so when I was talking about that pyramid, the vast majority of the pyramid is what I would call competitive. Everyone wants to win. But when you get to the very top, I think it's fair to say that you can then start classifying as esports. Just my personal perspective, it becomes an esport when people are actually prepared to give up their time to watch these people play, where there's money involved, there's professional setups, there's rules and regulations, there's a structure. That's what we're talking about with esports. Now, if you want to get involved in that, to your point, Paul, you were saying this year we have a ranking system. So depending on how these competitors will perform at any one of 30 major tournaments throughout the world, it's a bit like ATP, exactly like ATP Tour tennis. If you win Roland Garros or Wimbledon, you get a ton of points. If you win, I don't know, the Brighton Open, considerably fewer points. But at the end of the day, the leaderboard doesn't lie. If you've been performing well, you're at the top. And then straight away, anyone, it's open for anyone, FIFA.gg, go there now if you wish. You can see who are the best players in the world. And it goes all the way down to like 200 or 300.
But one thing it does do on that list as well is attribute the nationality of the players.
Yep.
So obviously the players you have for Levante are Spanish players, but there are clubs, for instance, like Wolves, whose recruitment strategy has been to recruit a local player like Turin, but also have two very successful Brazilian players.
Okay.
How do you balance up kind of shopping local and, like most football clubs would do, going global and trying to take your players from other regions?
But when we start, of course, that we were looking at Spanish player because we wanted to create this empathy with our fans. And so we start finding who was a young, talented players that can join our project and grow with him. So we signed Ranerista. But right now, I think that we are more than available to look player all around the world. For us, now we are going to create a gaming house in Valencia, a gaming center where the two players will live together, they train together. We will give them a coach. We won't have them with us. So it's important to have the players with us because we can make content with them. We want to have them like influencer, not only player. But why not to look a player all around the world? I think that now with globalization, we might have a Brazilian player defending Levante Unión Deportiva.
So in the sense of the Portuguese Federation, your geography is obviously a lot more minimal. You're recruiting Portuguese players. But how do you decide who represents Portugal?
For us, it's a little bit different. We have a different role because we have the national team where we select the best players. But who's going to be the next best player in the future? It's like football. We have now Ronaldo, but we already have João Félix. In eFootball, we have the same goal. We have Rast Artur and Tuga. They are on the top 10 of the best FIFA players in the world. But next year, maybe we need one more star player. And for that, we must create a grassroots project where we can build a competitive ecosystem so that we can find the next player and give conditions to clubs to activate their esports projects and to have players and to give conditions to the players so that we as Football Federation can then select the best players for the national team.
So it's obviously Portugal was involved in the E-Nations Cup, this year, but last competitive season. Ben, do you mind just kind of introducing kind of how the E-Nations Cup works? That's quite different and how different countries recruited the players who represents them.
Yeah, sure. So one of the major events in the competitive calendar is the E-Nations Cup, or as was for this year. So part of the FIFA Global Series for FIFA 19, it was a new tournament. It was a kind of a bit of a trial. It was a bit of an introduction. Again, I'm not going to talk about we've got some cool plans coming for next year. I won't go into that today. But generally speaking, so last year was the inaugural. And there was a bit of a mixture. So some national associations are very forward-thinking and have setups that will facilitate the evolution of players or the development of players. Portugal is being a good example. Other examples, so the French Federation, they're switched on. The Swedish Federation, absolutely switched on. There are probably, there's another tier of countries that understand that esports is something that is appealing to them. They have a kind of vague idea that they may be fortunate to have just some really good homegrown players. England, for example, I think the FA, obviously, they put a player into the World Cup, the E-Nations Cup this year, but aren't necessarily fully geared up as much as, say, Raul's team is in Portugal. And then there's another kind of tranche of countries that, again, they've read the headlines. Esports is worth $1 billion every day, or whatever the crazy numbers it is. They know it's on the radar, but they've literally no idea how to engage. So I think part of the role for EA and also for FIFA, and also the other associations, is to help those other associations come on board, understand what is good practice. Is it a nationwide trial where you're literally offering everyone the chance to play? For some countries, that absolutely is a great way of doing it. For other countries, probably less so. You talked about the leaderboard earlier on. For countries that perhaps aren't as well geared up, don't quite have the resources yet, look at the top 100 players, and you just pick the best 2 players from that list. That's a great start, because it allows you to get your toe in the water.
Now, obviously, if you sign your players, you pick out who you want, you pay them salaries, which necessarily can't go into, but vary considerably from the top down to the bottom. We know how the players can make money, but obviously, if you're running an esports team, you have to have a commercial element there also. Gaming houses won't pay for themselves. But Levante, you've got a good example of how you have made this commercialized with the likes of Philips, if you could give the audience that as an example.
Yes, of course. 3 years ago, we organized an international tournament in our stadium. We called 14, 15 teams from all around the world. Manchester City was involved, Sporting Club de Portugal was involved, AS Roma, Paris Saint-Germain, Kashima Antlers. Everyone sent a player to our stadium. We organized a 3 days tournament there, and we wanted to have a connection with the match that our first team play on Sunday in our stadium, and we spoke with Philips, and we proposed them to be our main sponsor tournament, but at the same time to have their logo on the shirts of Levante first team in a match of La Liga match, Levante against Athletic Club de Bilbao. They were very happy of that, and so that was an example of how clubs, sponsor can work together. Of course, that we know that a football club can give the opportunity for a sponsor to put their logo on a football pitch. This is important, but for that reason we wanted to how connect with them, and the example of Philips was fantastic. Of course, that if we want to involve some sponsors, we have to give them this connection between esports, Levante Unión Deportiva section, and first team section. For example, next season we will have an ambassador from our first team. It will be esports ambassadors. So he will play with our esports gamers. He will play with our fans, and so we will try to involve some sponsor and say them, okay, you will not only advertise esport teams, but you will be involved in the day-by-day of our first team. So this is the way that we want to work.
So would you say it's integral that you need to involve your esports offering with your first team, and that they can bring benefits both ways? Yes.
For us, it's for sure must work in this way. If we want to be involved, big brands, we need to offer them more than the name in a gaming house. Yeah. You know what I mean? So to have this connection with the first team, with all the assets that the first team can give to a brand, the LED advertising during a La Liga match, a brand on in our stadium, a brand on in the shirts of Levante. This connection must be good, you know.
So how does that work with regards to you working with the first team? Is there any pushback? Does the first team want to separate themselves, or are they very much involved? I know I won't name names, but I know working with some high-profile Champions League teams that the players themselves are such huge FIFA fans, but they enjoy engaging with the esports team because it's part of their lifestyle.
Yeah, working with professional athletes, in my case with players, is not always easy, you know, because we have to think that the first thing that they have to perform every day on the pitch, because if we don't score goal, we go to second division, and in second division we have to close our esports team, so we have to care them. But every day we see that our players are very happy to work with Levante Esports, because, as you say, they play in FIFA every day. Every day they play FIFA. So they call me, please, I want to play with Dani or Ranerista. And so we are trying to create something that in the future can be daily, maybe a tournament, maybe a training every day between our player and professional players. So we are in this way. And I think that in the next 2-3 years we will see something interesting between with the connection that will be from esports teams and professional players.
Well, obviously the commercial side of it is clearly important, but there's plenty of teams whose primary focus is fan engagement, especially young fans. What's the Portuguese Federation done to engage young fans through esports? And your international games, I presume, would be one of these?
So we built an ecosystem based on the community. So the community of esports is huge, and we have respected this community, built an ecosystem based on the community. Then from the community, we have the athletes and the clubs, more than 10,000 registered athletes that we have at the moment, and more than 200 clubs from first division of football, last division, gaming clubs that was already here. Then we create the competitions, organize the competitions, and then we promote them on the social media with our media partners. So we create a connection with the community. We have also a connection with football, of course, like the example that I said before, with the football players from the national team, with Ruben Neves and Diogo Jota, for example. And then we create a connection with partners, so that we can help the partners to come to esports, because the market is already here, but many of them, they don't know the market. And the Portuguese Football Federation has a decisive role in this topic, to help partners to come to esports, to create a connection to this community, and we use football as an asset to do that. For example, with M&Ms, M&Ms are involved with the national team, with the eFootball national team, and we have done this activation between the eFootball national team and the men's football national team. And so you can create connection with partners, and together with them, make them investment profit.
So, Ben, you have experience with the whole gamut of teams. Those who are experienced and been doing this for a number of years, and those who are still relatively new. How have you seen different teams engaging fans through the use of esports?
It's a good question. So, obviously, FIFA the game has been around for 25 years, and for the last 8 to 10 years, there's been a kind of a slow emergence of a kind of an elite level, or this a level of play and level of engagement over and above just the average. And I think you'd have to look at the teams in Germany that have really been leading that. So the Bundesliga, the virtual Bundesliga, has been around for 8 seasons now, I think. And a lot of clubs have bought into that ecosystem, and they are treating their players, or in as professional a way as any club. It helps the fact you have a more mature ecosystem because more clubs have dipped their toe and gone, actually, this is working for us. And another one comes in, another one comes in. So there's a good 7 or 8 clubs that are doing a really good job. I'm not going to pick out individual clubs, showing favoritism, but if for those of you who are looking at best practice for traditional football clubs getting involved in esports, absolutely have a look at the clubs in Germany because they've just been doing it longer. I think the MLS also have done a remarkable job. There are arguably other leagues out there that are probably have bigger scope and scale than MLS on a global scale. But I mean, I take my hat off to the North Americans. They know how to market things, and the clubs absolutely are embracing that. They take a lot of strength from doing things kind of en masse. It's not just one club running off and doing their own thing. They kind of band together and do it as a kind of almost like a union. There was one club that I probably would give a name check to, and that's Ajax. So again, they have decided quite a few years ago to decide that they're all in on esports, even at a time where EA was just kind of waking up to the fact that it was kind of on our shoulders to start leading this structure of professionalism. So I think the reason why I'd call Ajax out is because, to your point, they properly integrate the esports players with the team. They have training facilities. They follow the same kind of diet regimes and training regimes. In terms of that intensity, they treat them like professionals, but they expect a professional attitude. And let's not forget, I mean, traditional football, you can be a star at 18, 19, 20, but in that world, I think vast majority of clubs have woken up to the fact that, right, you get the media trained, you prepare them for life in the spotlight. That's not the case with esports. So you get a kid who's a remarkable console player. The vast majority of the world will just say, he's some little geeky kid, or he's just good at video games. But we're now living in a world where these little geeky kids can be winning $250,000 in any one tournament. So with Ajax, they've decided, right, let's give them all the training, let's give them the backup, all the background, let's pay them a fair wage, let's give them some consistency, let's have these expectations of them, i.e., you turn up on time, you win your matches, you train, you do everything we ask, and we will remunerate you accordingly. And they've just got it right. There's not too much pressure on the players, but equally they are elevated to a level where they have to start acting in a mature fashion, and it's working for them.
Yeah. But the Ajax contracts also replicate that as well, don't they? They're not just kind of like in one and then out the other.
Yeah, that's fair as well, because, I mean, being honest, competitive FIFA is still in its infancy. So we've had really 3 full professional seasons, and yeah, we've got a long way to go in terms of the structure and the setup that we have. And don't get me wrong, that there are some. For those of you who are more familiar with esports, there are games out there that just knock us out of the park in terms of viewership and sponsorship revenues. Games like League of Legends or Dota or Counter-Strike, there's any number. But EA's got really big ambitions. We're setting our targets really, really high. I mean, the thing that we sometimes take for granted is we make a football simulation game. The world gets football. It's the easiest esport in the world to understand. You don't have to. You can tune in and know if I stick more balls in the net than this guy, I win. Games like League of Legends, where you got wizards and dragons and monkeys and flying biscuits or whatever the hell it is, it's kind of harder to understand. So we have this inherent advantage, and that's what I think we really need to embrace.
One thing which I would like to do is open the floor to Q&A a little quite soon because we're going to be running out of time. What I would like to do is a small bit of future gazing, and if we could just give you each a minute to think, if we are here in 12 months' time, what would be different? Do you think there's much that has changed or that you see changing?
So I believe we change every day. I personally believe we're going to be bigger than futsal, than women's football, than maybe men's football in the future. Because we are the most democratic sport at the moment at the Football Federation. Everyone can play e-football, everyone. And we are, at the moment we have 10,000 registered players. The competitions, esports are evolving every day. And I believe that in 1 year we're going to have big stars in e-football that can bring more people to this sport and create more engagement to the fans.
And Luca?
It's a difficult question because every day we are growing and changing. So how we can be in 1 year time is difficult. I hope with La Liga trophy in Levante office, because this is our target. And why not playing 2 versus 2? I don't know. Maybe this is a solution that can engage
To those not aware, so most eFIFA football is played as on a 1 versus 1 basis.
Yeah.
Yet there are some tournaments where it's 2-on-2 and it's more of a team game like E-Nations.
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's not a suggestion, but it's something that may happen. And my dream is to have, and I think that is La Liga dream too, to have all the teams, professional teams, not only in Spain but all around the world, involved in this game. Why not travel with Levante to Real Madrid and play before the match the game with our gamers against Real Madrid gamers, and do a national, international competition. I think that this is the way that maybe in the future we will have the competition. And I don't know.
So Ben, obviously I know you can't comment exactly on what is happening over the next 12 months because that's still to be announced.
Yeah.
But if we're here in 12 months, what would you expect to be seen as a success over the next 12 months? I know clearly you're doing big numbers.
If I may use super broad brushstrokes. So I think that in the next 12 months, so the EA is working with lots of different partners in the traditional football world to create an ecosystem that is more consistent, that allows growth, realistic growth. There are certain games out there, not wishing to mention, but that they've been really popular in the last 18 months. They've come in, dropped millions of prize pool onto various tournaments. And to be fair, good luck to them. But I just personally don't think it's not sustainable. What we're trying to do is build an ecosystem that has these, as I said, that pyramid shape. We want to make sure that the people coming at the bottom are having a good, enjoyable experience, and there's a next level. There's a clear path to. I'm sitting on my couch with my buddies to. I've just literally now holding the E-World Cup. So consistency, I think, more professionalism, but where it suits those partners. I think it's wrong to say as soon as you get into competitive FIFA, you've got to be professional. But at some point, we have to have the teams and the organizations that are above that line, going from competitive to esports. It's understanding that professionalism is the only way. And I don't mean throwing money at everything. I mean structures, long-term plans, not just saying, oh, esports is important today, but next week is, I don't know, virtual gaming or whatever it would be. So the other thing I want to add is that the benefit to competitive FIFA and FIFA esports is that we're still an esport. Yes, it looks like football. There are 2 nets, there are goalkeepers, there's teams of 11, there's a ball. Yes, it's football, but it ultimately is still an esport. So if there's one thing that I would suggest for everyone who's new to this scene to take out, we're not trying to recreate traditional football. If we were doing that, well, it would be pointless because you just go to a stadium on a Saturday and watch the real thing. So it is football, and it can be enjoyed as football. It's easy to get into. You know to root for. You can totally appreciate a cool bit of skill or a great goal. But remember, this product is not traditional football. So the way it's consumed and the way that it's set up is different. And if you can get your head around that, then you will have success in this space.
Thank you. We have about 5-6 minutes left. So if there are any questions from the floor, can you stick your hand up? And I might be able to see you under these lights. He's very easy to see, fellow in the middle.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello, so my name is Joe. I'm from Olympics. We are a strategy consulting firm based in Dubai. We work with football clubs and associations, leagues across Asia primarily. So esports is a very prominent topic, obviously, over the last years. So my question is more for the clubs and for the federations. So basically, it's where do you get the knowledge from to set up, let's say, esports competitions or to set up an esports team? because it's very, very different, obviously, from traditional operations. So, for instance, in the Middle East, you have a lot of talented players, for example, in Saudi Arabia or with us in Dubai, where young people, they don't necessarily have to go to university, you know, they come from wealthy families. So they sit in their basements, you know, playing FIFA or other games 8 hours a day. They don't even realize they're actually, you know, training. So they put a clock in a lot of hours. They're very good, but for clubs, you have to know this scouting process. You have to find these players. So basically, you have to drive around, go through these basements, and find these young kids, basically, who are talented. So my question is, you know, how do you actually, where do you get the knowledge from to implement these esports processes in your football clubs or in the leagues?
When we start, I have to be honest, we didn't have a lot of knowledge about FIFA. We work with an agency that suggests us the best 10 players in Spain, and we start from this point. Of course, that in 3 years' time, now we know the market and we know how to work. But it's difficult. It's difficult because I'm sure that there are many young guys in Spain and that are able enough to be a professional player of Levante Unión Deportiva. But at the same time, we are lucky because we live now in time that the technology help you. We can organize tournament online and pick up the best player of the tournament. We have the ranking on FIFA where everyone can be there. You know, if you win every day your matches online. So on finding the talent, I think that for a club is not so difficult.
So for us, it's easy. Also, combine what you have as a federation, for example, with the community, and create the best competition or the best event for them. Also, work with them, with the community, with what we have the best. So, for example, the Portuguese Federation, we already organize football competitions, events like the Euro 2004, and when we have combined this knowledge with the knowledge of the community, and so we have started our project in 2017.
And there are many companies who are providing services to clubs, so you can buy in the experience just like you would if you were doing anything else that was new. An example Ben gave earlier on about FIFA.gg, those rankings are extensive. You're not just talking about the top 50 players. You could drill down and find players from all countries of all talents and all availabilities. Anything else? We have 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Anyone else? One there.
Hi, Dan Wood from the World Freestyle Football Association. Just interested, do your organisations recognise any responsibility towards deteriorating health and obesity levels in young people? And if so, how do you aim to try and help that?
I'll have a stab at that one. Nice loaded question, by the way. It's definitely it's definitely something which is important, and I think there is actually some very interesting studies. There's one particularly done by Danish Federation, which is pretty available online. It looked at youngsters who were participating in video games, and then their propensity to get involved in the real world of football. And off the top of my head, I can't remember all of the stats, but the basic emphasis, the basic essence of it was that by participating in video game competitions, there was an increase in confidence, obviously an affinity with teammates and clubs, and I think they tracked that there was a positive reinforcement by playing competitively, which then also made them then want to go on and play the real thing. Now, I'm not saying that's the case for every single person in the world, but that's just one example that perhaps bucks the trend of what perhaps you were suggesting. I'm not going to sit here and argue that and say that sitting in front of your console for 2 hours a day and playing FIFA is necessarily good for your heart or your general health. But it absolutely isn't the intention to want to stifle people's ability to fall in love or stay in love with traditional football?
I think it's also I guess a stereotype which I was very much exposed to when we first started working in this field. I had people come to me, and it was very much of the geeks sat in a basement. But the more you work with people in the competitive, in this case, the competitive FIFA scene, you realise that's not always the case. There are some FIFA players who, by looking at them, might not be considered to be in the best health, and there are others which are in fantastic shape. And this just forms a very small part of it. And I think it's sometimes unfortunate that the same argument isn't levelled to people who maybe play chess, for instance, which is another very sedentary sport.
Can I just, what would your view be on it? Because it's quite a pertinent question.
Yeah, no, I think it's about an organisation's strategy and how you connect to your audience ultimately. And if young people are inspired as they are to sit on their couch for 8 hours a day, sometimes it's, I think within the messaging that's there as a product, you're talking, you're in the face of these kids all day long sometimes. Maybe there's ways of talking through that and inspiring play and gamifying the way that how they get up and active to counteract maybe the 2 hours they've just spent. Can you reward that in some way?
Again, without we're talking about looking into the future, there are some interesting things coming up in the next sort of 3 to 4 months. I'd say watch this space. That actually absolutely is encouraging or more fostering for a kind of a holistic view. Yes, be as good as you can, train as hard as you can, put an hour or so a day in, but that's not the be all and end all. There are other stimuli that you need to expose yourself to. So yeah, it is something that's, well, for EA, a consideration, and you'll see some stuff coming out in the very near future.
I think you might also be quite surprised sometimes about how often they train. I spoke to many players who you would expect will smash 8, 9, 10 hours going through FIFA, and sometimes it isn't. It's more about the quality of the people they play against rather than the regularity of their play. They learn much more playing 5 really high-skilled players than just walking over 100 amateurs. So there is a balance to it as well, I think. But we are out of time, so I'd like to thank our panel, everybody here who's turned up, and please feel free to grab them when they come off stage with any other questions you may have. But thank you for your time.
Thank you.